Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep into dreaming of being there in our favorite Bible stories. Tonight, we begin with the story of Jacob, the night he found himself alone in the stillness, somewhere between places a person calls home. Genesis chapter 28. He was just a traveler tired from walking all day looking for a place to lie down, with nothing to cradle his head but a stone in the wild grass. The sky was wide and empty above him. He was not important or safe or surrounded, just someone between yesterdays and tomorrows, making do with the quiet ground beneath him and the hush all around. These aren't sermons. They are stories retold softly, slower than the night itself, made for people who are tired in body, in spirit, in mind. Here, no one expects you to be changed or convinced, only comforted. You don't have to think hard or follow every word. This is for resting into God's gentle presence, the one that finds us in tired places and holds us right there. Maybe you know that feeling Jacob had, the ache behind your eyes, the longing to finally lay down your thoughts. How strange it is when everything you own feels far away, and the world grows quiet enough to hear your own breath. This video was made to help you drift toward sleeping, but not just sleep. To draw near to something holy, to find, even in your far-off places, that God's whispers still find you, the hush that holds you, even with nothing left to earn, prove, or say. You can let go even now. Even if you fall asleep before the end, the story keeps walking beside you, gentle as a friend who sits a little nearby and lets you rest first. All night, angels moving up and down a hidden ladder just for you, without needing to be noticed. You don't have to listen closely. Just let this story settle in your breath like grass settling under a tired body. There is nothing to do except rest, and let God's quiet find you in the waiting. It is early. The kind of early where the world is mostly still thinking about sleep. A blue quiet floats over everything. Jacob breathes it in without hurry. He lies very down to the earth, every part of him softened by the night's wandering, one cheek pressed to the round chill of a stone. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The sky blushes faint. It's not sunrise, not yet. The color that spills over the hills could almost be called shy. Dew glitters on brittle grass, tiny drops thin as thread above the dirt. If you listen, you might think you hear them waking too. No voice calls his name. There are no trumpets or angels crowding the edge of his sleep anymore, just the hush. Even the birds know better than to interrupt. Jacob holds onto the last scraps of dream, but the memory slips away the way water soaks into sand. Let this moment stretch. Jacob blinks. His lashes are crusted with dust and last night's tears. There is no shame in it. Everyone cries after a hard day. Out here alone, even God seems quiet, perhaps more present in the silence. He sits up slowly, not out of fear, not out of dread. There's only the ache of a body that has walked far and slept on stone. His hand brushes the pebble from his palm, feeling each groove beneath his thumb. Nothing here is new except the light, pale, not gold yet, steady like a hand pressed between your shoulder blades. Jacob's blanket is rough wool. It smells faintly of sheep and yesterday's campfire. He pulls it closer for a breath, his palm finding comfort in its weight. Even this silence is holy. A wild fennel grows beside him, its green stalk tipped with dew. He touches it, lets the fragile bead slide off onto his finger. Somewhere behind him, a locust rasps once, then quiet again. He takes in the smell of dawn, sharp grass, mingled with earth, a hint of smoke. His stomach grumbles and he smiles a little at the sound. Hunger is simple, it does not judge. There's no fire, just a ring of charcoal, white at the edge where the heat used to be. Jacob does not move to stir it. He lets himself stay where he is, spine bent, knees tucked. There's safety in being small, in being unseen for a while. Let yourself rest inside this quiet. He listens for familiar voices, but only the wind answers. A far-off olive branch clicks against itself. The world is gently indifferent, and that is its own kind of kindness. When Jacob closes his eyes again, he remembers how the dream felt. Not the details, those have wandered away as dreams do. Just the feeling. Weightless, wanted, watched. That strange sense of being held even out here, where nobody knows his name but God. The stone beneath him is hard, but it is real. He suspects he will carry its impression on his skin all day. Somehow that seems good, proof the night was not all shadow. Even when you are far away, you are still seen. Jacob leans back. He watches how the sky changes. Stars like pinholes fade, so slow you'd only notice if you waited. He waits not because he must, but because there is no rush. Morning is not a thing that can be hurried. A beetle clambers across the rolled edge of his blanket. He offers it a finger, lets it explore. Its shell is black, almost luminous in the cool light. Jacob thinks about how easy it is to be unnoticed. The beetle, the dew, the boy with a stone for a pillow. Yet somehow everything is known. Let the world move slowly, he thinks about his family. Each face comes in pieces. His mother's hands, Esau's laughter echoing over flat fields, the heavy steps of his father at dusk. These pieces fit together differently now, fractured by the road and sleep. None of it feels urgent while the sun is still deciding whether to rise. The land stretches, wide and gentle. In the distance, sheep pepper a hillside, tiny specks that move only when the dog comes close. It smells faintly of wool and grass and something bitter, old olives left on the ground. Jacob picks up the stone. He turns it in his palm. It is unremarkable, just a shard from the earth. Still, it feels important. The kind of thing you remember when you wake and cannot tell where the dream ended. He leaves it where he found it, pressing it into the grass again. Gratitude in the smallest way. Even the ground remembers. He stands, slow and careful, joints popping quietly. His shadow follows him, long and thin. Morning comes all at once and not at all. One moment, you are in night, the next, you are awake. He runs his hand through his hair. Sand sifts down. The day will begin soon, moving on, finding water, tracing the path of the sun. But not yet, not now. Jacob kneels beside a thorn bush, not to pray, but because it is there. He plucks a dry leaf and rolls it between his fingers. The pattern is simple, veins like the edges of a brook. He thinks, God loves quiet things too. A lark begins to sing, voice small but insistent. Jacob listens but does not answer. He lets the sound find him on its own terms. There is nothing he must do, nowhere he must be. Let the day come at its own pace. His mouth is dry, but it is not unpleasant. He savors it, tasting the memory of water from the night before. The hunger, the thirst, the tiredness, they are all part of being alive. In the hush, Jacob gathers his things, blanket, satchel, flask. He folds each one slowly. There is care in the way he smooths the wool, in the way he tucks the corners. No one notices these small rituals, but they feel like prayers anyway. The world is awake now. The grass quivers with tiny feet and wings. Light walks softly across the stones. Jacob does not hurry it. He lets it unfold, the way you let a story finish itself in your mind before you speak it aloud. He takes one last look at the place he slept. There is nothing special about it except that he was here, and in some way God was too. Let yourself be held in this moment, that is enough. The night listens with you. Even when you're far from home, you are known. You are watched over softly, quietly, in ways you cannot see. You can rest a little longer if you choose, just let the morning keep you. Let it be only light and no warning, and a promise that speaks in silence. The sky was hardly awake, just a silvery smudge above the rocks. All the colors stayed gentle, blue not quite blue, brown still holding onto the night. Jacob shifted beneath his rough cloak. The stone that held his head was warm from his skin, cool from the earth below. He lay there a little longer. He moved slowly, the way you do when no one is waiting. One hand to the ground, the other brushing dried leaves from his sleeve. Not rushing, not needed anywhere, not missing anything. He let his eyes blink open, then closed them again just to listen. Nothing moved but the quiet. His body rose inch by inch, ankles first, then knees. A stretch that wasn't a task, just a simple greeting to the morning. His hands lifted behind his back, then forward. He felt the desert wind, cool, dry, brushing every finger. Even his hands felt different, dusty, empty, but strong. A day of walking, perhaps, but none of that mattered yet. Jacob walked only as far as he needed, his sandals pressing soft shapes into the sand. Each step surrendered to the hush around him. He waited by a shallow pool left from the last thin rain. The water barely moved. He knelt, hands dipping in. Not to scrub away any real dirt, just to feel morning stick to skin. The water was cold, clear. He let it drift over his palms, his wrists, his face. Eyes squeezed shut as if in a silent prayer, but there were no words, just the stillness, and the air around him thick with presence. He lingered, letting droplets glide down his jaw, some tracing the fine cracks in his skin. He did not wipe his face dry right away. There was no need. The sun would finish what he started. He trusted it. He rolled his shoulders back, feeling the roughness of his tunic, the looseness around the waist where the cord had slipped sometime in the night. He didn't bother to tighten it. Not yet. Jacob's tasks were few and gentle. No one set the pace but the silence. He gathered up his things, folding cloak over arm, tucking bread into a simple pouch. The crust was hard where it had pressed against the stone. It didn't matter. He chewed slowly, every bite a small pause, every swallow a quiet surrender. Let this moment stretch. Let yourself feel the air, the morning still wrapped close before the world interrupts. There was time to mend a sandal, but not today. No goats to mind, no wells calling his name. Only his own footsteps, the rhythm of breathing, the soft pattern of sun warming his brow. Even this silence is holy. He didn't speak aloud. His thoughts, so often sharp and tangled, were softer now, softer than yesterday. He watched the ants travel their patient road beside him, each one minding a duty so small it couldn't be seen from far away. Jacob smiled at himself, not with joy but with understanding. To wake slowly, to rise only for the sake of being alive was enough. No one asked anything of him. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The night listens with you. Every small breath, every half-open eye, every lazy stretch is known by God. Here in the quiet, no hurry is holy. Time itself moves gentle. Let yourself move at this pace, as if you are there with him beneath that sky in the wide, waiting morning. Jacob woke just before the sun showed its quiet edge over the hills. The dawn didn't rush him. There was no reason to be quick. There was only the cool hush of air and the rough ground beneath his blanket. He sat for a long time, feeling the earth settle into his bones. The stones under him were cold but not unkind. He rolled his shoulders, slow and sleepy, and listened to the dry wind stroking the fur of the hills. Birds waited. Nothing called for him. For a while he wandered nowhere, letting the morning find its shape. He stood up, his blanket slipping to the ground, and began gathering stones, round ones, flat ones, ones with pockmarks where other fires had lived before. There was no search for the best or brightest, just what lay close at hand. Each stone was lifted and held, fingers brushing off the dirt. The stones were arranged in a circle by his sleeping place. No pattern, only what seemed steady when pressed with a palm. There was a gentle satisfaction in the weight. Each stone was enough. The work was plain. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The hush widened. Even the silence is holy. Jacob's hands were not strong, not quick. He gathered stray sticks, broken and dry from the night. He snapped small twigs apart with his fingers, the sound soft as bones settling into dust. The slow rhythm of the task, the careful placing, the waiting, felt like a kind of prayer. The fire would come when it wished. He made a nest for it, a little pile of grass and leaves from last night's rest. He pressed the tinder gently as if tucking a sleeping child. Fire doesn't hurry. Neither did Jacob. He found a flint, struck it once, then twice. The tiny sparks leapt and disappeared before his eyes. Smoke began in a hush, finding its own path to the sky. Not a blaze, just smoke curling like a question. He fanned it softly, with slow breaths. Let this moment stretch. The day wouldn't begin any sooner for wanting it to. The flame appeared, shy and narrow at first, then licking the dry wood with slow hunger. He waited, letting the warmth gather its strength. The stones darkened as heat traveled through them, a slow, whispering light under the surface. Jacob felt the comfort in his fingers, one at a time tracing over the fire ring. The night's cold faded with the quiet promise of day. He closed his eyes and listened. Sometimes there was only the pop of a stick shifting, a bird's cry, the smallest touch of wind. A small cloth was unwrapped, laid on the flat rock he'd chosen as his table. Last night's bread, nothing new but enough. He set the bread near the fire, turning it sometimes, not watching for change. The crust slowly took a gentler texture, just warm at the edge, just soft in the middle. He broke pieces off, dipping them in water left from the evening. The taste was plain, a little bitter from travel, but it filled him just right. He ate slowly. No need to finish quickly, no one waiting for the meal to end. He chewed quietly, eyes half closed, following the shapes of clouds with his mind. Every bite felt intentional, as if the simple act was known by God, witnessed, enjoyed, cherished not for what it could be, but for what it already was. He swallowed and let the next breath hang, unhurried. Even boredom felt sacred now. Some food was saved for later, folded again in its cloth, pressed under the stones. Jacob licked crumbs from his fingers and wiped them on his skirt, movements so small, even the wind might not see. He rested his hands on his knees and waited, not for anything in particular, only letting the world return to its slow rhythm. The fire crackled softly. Smoke drifted on the same wind that, somewhere far off, stirred tents and olive trees and the dreams of strangers. Nothing needed to happen next. The flame slowly lowered as the wood shrank into ash. Jacob used a stick to poke at the embers, making a tiny pattern like writing his name in the dirt. The letters meant nothing, but the motion was kind. He remembered other mornings, roads dustier, stones colder. Yet somehow this day was always the same, simple, quiet enough. He sipped a little water. It tasted of nothing special, yet quenched his weariness. He thought of all the places he could not see, all the people also waking, also making breakfast on some lonely plain. He felt less alone. The world was full of small fires and quiet trust, stones beneath every sleeper's back, a kind of scattered home woven from ordinary things. There was no hurry to clear the fire, no rush to cover the stones. The ashes would cool in their own time. The morning pressed on, the heat from the stones lingering a while longer. Jacob watched the sky lighten, pale blue spreading behind thin clouds. It was a beautiful day, in a way only the tired notice, quiet, slow, full of the promise that nothing needed to change. This is enough. The night listens with you, God walks slowly too, and for now that was all. The sun is almost gone, leaving a cool hush on the stones. Jacob sits with his knees up, pulling his cloak loose around his shoulders. The day sucked the sweat from him, and now he peels the cloth away, shaking out the sand. It clings to everything out here. He's gentle, not fast. The desert is stingy and wide. You use what you have and you care for it like it might be the last. His hands work their memory, folding his cloak one careful corner at a time. He presses each line flat, picks off stickers and dry grass that followed him from the trail. He turns the cloak and smooths it again, not because anyone is watching, but because this cloth means warmth tonight, because care fills the empty places. He hums. The sound is soft, early, searching, but not for an audience. No song, just something old that lives in the bones and comes out at dusk. He doesn't know if it's a prayer or just a habit. The night listens with him. There's shame tucked in the creases. The old holes from years of travel, stains from quick escapes or gentle spills. Spots that remind him of moments he wishes he could wash away, but never quite does. Even the cloak hides these things for him, wrapping old regrets with new warmth. No one else needs to see. Let your breath slow here. Jacob learned long ago to keep things whole. He covers the folded cloak with his hand, feeling the weave. It's nothing royal, no bright dye, no shape but its own. Still, it's a kind of shelter. In the wilderness, that is enough. Sometimes he remembers stories his mother told, how God used clothes to cover, to shield from shame after Eden. He thinks maybe this act, shaking sand, folding, setting aside, might be a small part of that same grace. A quiet devotion hidden in the ordinary. Let this moment stretch, the flick of cloth, the sigh of wind, the hush as he sets the bundle near his head. He keeps it tidy, not for pride, but to be ready, if rest comes, if he needs to walk again before sunrise. Honest living means never letting go of small cares. He sits with folded hands, the last color of light still finding the edges of his face. Nothing rushes him, not hunger, not fear. He asked for nothing and still felt full. You can let your body rest now. Even this silence is holy. Jacob's cloak is just a simple thing, but tonight it is enough. A memory, a covering, something to keep at the edge of the wilderness when sleep is far from home. Jacob walked a path that wasn't really a path. It was just the old, packed ground shaped by the memory of feet. His soles pressed into earth where grass dared not grow. Each step found home in the soft, shallow dents made by others, long gone. It didn't matter where he was headed. The country stretched out gray and quiet, the kind of land where sound falls behind the body. Staying a while in the still air, he pressed forward, but not with purpose. His steps had no rush, no grand aim. There are times when you walk just because the world is wide and moving feels more natural than stopping. This was one of those days. Even the birds moved slowly, floating on the low wind. Far off, a lizard darted into a crack between two forgotten stones. He watched for a moment and then kept going. There was nothing to chase here. No one called for him. The dust stuck to his ankles and he let it settle there. He could have brushed it away, but he let it stay. Dust, after all, was just part of walking. Let this moment stretch. Like a tiny pocket of eternity in the plain morning air, Jacob thought about many things, but none of them loudly. The world around him hummed with little details. The shifting hush of his robe against his leg, the steady crunch of pebbles underfoot. Every so often, the wind seemed to sigh, and somewhere in the branches overhead, a dove called out half-hearted, as if just to remind the world to keep listening. He remembered a phrase from his childhood. It came back without meaning, just a sound shaped by someone's old loving voice. He mouthed it quietly. The words felt familiar, even if he did not know what they meant. Sometimes saying something from long ago can make you feel known, even when no one's around to hear. There was no reason for the memory, but he let it stay. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The road twisted itself around a mound. He did not wonder what was over the rise. Sometimes the unknown is a friend. The day warmed and his body moved slowly, half following shadows yet unfurled. There were no signs, only the silent map of hills and dips, clues for goats, not for men. Still he followed. Even this silence is holy. A breeze stirred and brought the smell of time crushed under his heel. He bent down, not to gather, but just to feel the air around the plant, soft and honest, sweet against the dust. Every place on this wavering road was held for a moment, then gently given back. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. There's a kind of peace that grows from walking with no plan. You notice things when nothing is urgent, the pattern of ants crossing a stone, or the way your heart keeps time with your steps. Jacob wiped sweat from his brow, his hand moving slow, almost tender. He wondered if the path missed him when he left. He smiled and said nothing, just listened to see if silence would answer. The night listens with you. By noon, the world had grown soft and bright. Jacob found a stretch of shade beneath a leaning olive tree. He sat, just long enough for his breath to even out. The only company was the warm air moving through branches, and the knowledge that God was not far, never as far as he seemed. He did not need to go anywhere or do anything heroic to be kept. The journey mattered, but the going was its own blessing. For a moment there was no future or past. There was only a boy and the day, wrapped in ordinary quiet. God walked slowly. Too, the ground was warm, a gentle heat pressing through Jacob's tunic, even as the sun arched toward its highest point. The air trembled with light, silent except for the tiniest shuffle of dust when he moved his foot, and something humming soft at the edge of hearing, a small bee, dipping between the paddles of a thorn bush nearby. Jacob carried his days on his shoulders, sometimes heavy, sometimes just there. His sandals, streaked with dust from morning miles, found their rest near a patch of worn earth. He'd found the only shadow for far around. A lone tree, nothing grand. It bent a little, and the branches opened out as if it wanted to take care of one traveler just for a while. He sat. The world shrank down to only the things that truly were. The tree, the stone, the skin of water tied to his belt, the bee ticking through the midday air. No crowd, no one waiting for him, no need to explain how long he'd sit. Just the sameness of sunlight and shadow, spreading patiently over everything. Sometimes holiness sneaks into the simplest things. A patch of shade, cool water, and a slow breath. Crickets had settled somewhere distant, their song steady and slow, more like breathing than music. It seemed the tree itself was listening, too, its leaves shifting only when the wind wandered by. Jacob tilted his head back against the trunk and let the little patch of peace hold him. He didn't rush. He didn't try to believe or understand. He just listened. The hush grew thick but not heavy. Each moment was like an old blanket, weighty, steady, known. It was almost enough to make someone forget why they ever hurried. The ground smelled like baked earth, and underneath, faint green things, roots working quietly where no one could see. Jacob pulled the water skin into his lap, untied the knot, and drank. The trickle over his tongue was the best thing he'd tasted all day. Slow sips. He wiped his brow with the back of his hand. The sweat was sticky, but now the shade felt cooler on his skin. Light glimmered on his half-empty water skin, and he glanced at the sun peeking through branches above. Sun and shade played over his hands. He watched the ripples in the shadow, letting his thoughts wander. The bee buzzed a low circle, back to the same small yellow blossom. Its hum was almost like words, or maybe something older than words, a soft voice made of wings and work. A stone rested beside his knee. He touched it, a small, everyday thing shaped by time. He wondered how many feet had stepped by, how many travelers had paused for a moment's shade or a quick mouthful of water. Maybe no one. Maybe he was the first person to stoop here in a year. He didn't ask for an answer. He was only grateful that the tree was here now. He laid his empty hand against the dirt, feeling tiny tremors, a distant ant, a pebble sharing the slightest bit of warmth. The stillness wasn't silent. There was the steady dip of his own breathing, the slow pulse in his wrist. A bird, high in the branches, gave a single call and then went quiet. Sometimes in the middle of nowhere, God feels closer, not in a loud way, not in blinding dreams or burning words, but just as a presence, gentle, always there if you stop to notice. Jacob let his eyes slip halfway closed. The shadows quivered with a breeze, small leaves fluttering overhead. He could have kept walking. He could have hurried past, looking for something bigger or brighter. Instead, for now, he let the moment stretch to fill him. It wasn't about getting somewhere. Not this hour. This hour was only for resting under strange shade, the bee circling, the water finished, and the smallest hope that this was enough. Let this moment stretch. Jacob dug his heel into the sandy soil, tracing a circle just for something to do. Life was often just waiting, just being. Even this stretch of time. The world kept moving. Cloud shadows crossed the fields. A cricket started up again, gentler now. The tree, for its part, had nothing important to say. It only kept the sun off Jacob's back. This was comfort enough for now. In the lull, Jacob remembered little things from home: flatbread smoked with ash, the way his mother mended linen, how his father's laugh made everything feel less sharp. The thought faded quickly. They were far from him here. Maybe, in the quiet, he could still feel their love tucked into this ordinary peace. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Far off, another bee joined the first. Soon, their voices hummed a duet, a tiny choir blessing a flower no one else would notice. Even the smallest sounds were enough to remind Jacob he wasn't alone. The world was busy being itself. No one needed to speak for it to matter. The hush deepened. Jacob's eyes, heavy under the weight of stillness, drifted closed, only for a breath or two. It didn't matter if he slept or just listened to the world working quietly around him. Let even this silence be holy. He pressed the stone into his palm. It warmed to his skin. If he thought of God at all, it was as someone who made shade trees, small bees, and the way dust settles softly where no one walks. Prayer wasn't asking. Prayer was this: stopping in the heat of day to drink, sit, and be. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Jacob stayed beneath the tree until the sun was lower, shadows leaning out long behind him. The bee flew off. The crickets faded. The peace in his chest lasted just as long as it needed to. When he finally stood again, brushing dust and leaves from his cloak, he felt steadier, like he belonged in the world exactly as it was, sheltered, even for a short while, beneath the branch and shadow. The night listens with you. Let your heart settle here. Bread again today. Not much, just a small round torn in half. The crust is rough in the hand. Jacob sits on the same stone he slept against, stone beneath, sky above, and the same hunger, soft around the edges. Crumbs rest in the palm. He doesn't rush. There's a moment to this, no hurry, no feast, just the shape of lunch, more quiet than hunger. The weight of morning is behind him. The afternoon is just a blanket of stillness. No need to fill the air with anything but quiet chewing, quiet breath. A dried fig waits beside the bread, dark, wrinkled, sweet when pressed between his thumb and finger. He tears it in two, not because he needs to, just because it's enough. The fig is enough. Everything is enough. The world does not ask for more. 2 olives by the edge of a folded cloth. Salt and oil linger on his thumb. He eats slowly, no urgency, no need for more. There are no words. There are always olives, always bread. The emptiness does not complain. It pulls up its chair and sits close as a friend. He swallows. Stillness settles in. There's nothing to chase. No one is watching. The sun is just above, pebble shadows stretched thin. In the hush, every bite is a prayer, every bite is the same as yesterday's. Bread, fig, olive. Again and again. Not a banquet, not a burden. A meal shaped by habit more than hope. He remembers last night, the stone under his head, the hush that stretched from ground to sky, angels moving, a ladder real but not here now. The day presses gently, not like a story but like a bed made each morning. He eats on, thumb and forefinger pinching bread. as if the world might end quietly in the middle of a meal and he would still feel full. He eats slowly. The left hand rests open on the knee. He eats because it is time, because bodies need feeding, and God does not fill a man's stomach with visions alone. There is trust in the way he chews, trust that the ordinary is holy, trust that God's promise is sturdy, not a thunderclap but a steady sunbeam over a simple lunch. Let this moment stretch. There is more comfort here than salt or bread. The fig left half-eaten is no tragedy. The olive's pit roll between his fingers. A nap maybe when the shade is long. No hurry to leave, no hurry at all. He asked for nothing and still felt full. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. There is a wholeness in the meal that isn't about what's missing. He eats because he is loved, because daily bread is more than enough. Even when far from home, the bread tastes known. Even when the ground is all stone, the quiet feels like belonging. Angels once moved up and down a ladder. Today, bread moves from hand to mouth. The sacred is found in both. In the quiet, God comes close, not shouting, not rushing, but sitting with him beside olives and sun. Let this moment linger, let the boredom hold you. The hush, the fullness, the quiet mouth. 1, 2, 3. Bread, fig, olive. Once more, Jacob looks at the sky. The world waits, for now he eats in obedience to quiet hunger and knows he is seen. Even this silence is holy. The day listens with him. Jacob's walk is growing quieter, the sky pale and ankle-deep in mourning. He has already left behind 2 towns, a fig orchard, a muddy bend in the trail where sandals stuck and slipped. There is nobody to talk to, only the hush of stones adjusting underfoot, and far-off bird calls Jacob never learned to name. Jacob finds 2 stones, not the one he used for his pillow. These are smooth, river-worn, each small enough to fit his palm. He knocks them together, softly at first. There's no song to it, only the tap that echoes something he once heard among the market tents, back when laughter and news were easy to find. As the stones meet, a faded rhythm appears. Busy hands passing flatbread, merchants haggling at half-voice, the shuffled feet of goats. Jacob listens to the memory move through him, not to recall perfectly, but to let homesickness pass by like a quiet traveler on the road, a breath of what he left behind. Let this moment stretch, he keeps walking. The stones blink in his pocket between every few steps. Each tap is a small echo against the empty air, like the low murmur of family voices from another room, familiar as bread baking. Gone now, but warm in the remembering. It is strange, the way absence becomes almost friendly when there is nothing else for company. The world isn't louder or quieter, just different. With every step, Jacob steps further from the valley where his people wait, but he carries fragments, tones, syllables, a pattern of sandals shuffling over ground. Home, reduced to a handful of sounds, just enough to not forget. The sun swings higher. Jacob shields his face and walks in its slow shade. There's no rush. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Let the silence be holy. He hums under his breath, tuneless and low. The sound doesn't fill the gap. It simply keeps him company, like a cloud staying overhead. He doesn't know what he is waiting for, just that some company comes in the shape of sound, and sometimes in the absence of it. At midday he sits by the trunk of a wild olive tree. The stones come out again. 1, 2, click. The air smells of dust and sap. His hands remember the motion, the way you move quietly in a crowd or tap seeds from their shell, working not to disturb the peace of a noon market. Old habits echoing where no one sees. Jacob thinks of the voices distant and fading, his mother asking if he is hungry, his brother's feet running past his door, the market's liquid chatter never quite settling. He lets the memories be gentle. They do not ache. Even this loneliness is a kind of trust, like knowing you'll be welcomed back, even if the sounds have changed. Like knowing silence can hold you for a while and not be empty. The afternoon is slow. Jacob walks until he finds a patch of thin grass. The world feels farther away, but inside the old voices rest softly. Not lost, just waiting. The hush feels sacred, the gentle percussion of stones a prayer that no one notices, but it is heard. The night listens with you, sleep comes upon him not with song, but with the memory of voices, the rhythm of stone against stone, and the quiet invitation to be kept, by absence, by trust, by the holy hush of a God who stays. He walked a little farther than before that evening, his feet moving slow through the hush of late sun, nothing urgent left to do, just the labor of being somewhere. The breeze had worn itself out by now. Stones pressing under his feet went cool, then damp. He passed the half-shadowed ridge, noticing the ground had been dug away here, once or perhaps many times, by hands that left, by people he would never meet. There, in a dip of silence, he saw the old pit, its rim soft as bread, its floor pressed smooth, lined with forgotten straw. Rain had washed most things clean. He stopped at the edge, feeling the nothingness below him, and without much thought let himself step down inside. The earth welcomed him in almost gently. Walls curved up around his back. He sat, knees folded, arms slack, smaller than before, small as the shadow he cast. For a little while he let himself be hidden from wind and light. It did not feel empty. The air tasted quiet, with the slow, sweet smell of earth and time. Things grew silent enough for one's thoughts to soften. A whole world shrank around him, slow and careful. No one would see Jacob here, not the sky, not the passing shepherds, not even the sound of his own footsteps. He listened as his breathing grew easier. Let this moment stretch as the hush of the land gathers. He remembered how it felt once, lying on the hard floor of his father's house, trying to make himself small in the corners where grown voices wouldn't reach. Long before words came, before the need to answer or speak, there had been only warmth and the gentlest dark. Like this. The dust in the air clung gently to his face. The pit's sides leaned close, a cradle of brown walls, curved and patient, earthen arms, worn by seasons of waiting. Here he found himself quiet. He had run for days, and now there was nowhere left to run. Stillness circled him, not to trap him, but to hold him. He did not pray. Sometimes the voice of God comes softest when there are no prayers. He only listened to his pulse slowing inside him, the beat without words, the silent patience of dirt and grain around him. His fingers drifted along the wall. With each small scrape, dry flecks came loose, falling softly onto his clothes, leaving marks that nobody but God would ever see. The pit had once been full, grain he'd never eaten, harvested by hands now gone. It was meant for storing life, for holding something precious until night and hunger passed through. Now it just waited. Still useful, even in emptiness, for a man smaller than hunger, just needing a place to hide. Jacob let the quiet thicken. He leaned back, feeling the earth's cool breath rise up the sides. Time passed slowly. He watched dust shift in the last stretch of light above the rim. The pit made its own twilight, wrapping its shallow belly around him. Nothing important happened. A dry seed pressed against his leg. Somewhere, a moth turned over in the grass. Above, birds made plans for sleep. For the first time in days, he felt himself drift apart from fear, and found he could rest inside being small, being hidden, as safe as before he had words. The silence reminded him of something larger, something out of reach but not gone. Hollow places remember what they once held, just as the body remembers the first rhythm of being alive. Somewhere, the memory of God's voice lingered in the darkness, not to startle, not even to teach, just to be near. He let his head lean into the earth's side. The pit took his shape without question. Cool dirt pressed his ear. The world muffled into nothing. He was no prophet, not an angel, not a keeper of dreams, just a body lying quiet in soil that knew how to wait. He blinked slowly, letting his eyes find peace in the dim. Even the dust seemed to settle, easing itself into the floor. There is comfort in being small, he thought. Not seen, not needed. The work of being completely unremarkable, even that can be holy when the land wraps around you. The night slid closer. Wind pressed over the opening, but only a soft curl found its way inside, a gentle finger playing along his cheek. Jacob closed his eyes. Hidden, he could almost remember the sound the world made before words. The first hush, the long exhale that carried him here. He listened as darkness sang in its quiet pitch. He asked for nothing and still felt full. In here, time belonged to the earth. Each breath worked its way out of the pit, meeting the cool, dark air and rising unseen. Each beat of his heart folded into the hush. Outside, the world went on. Tents were pitched, wood was stacked, travelers found their roads. Nobody missed him. Nobody noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Let even this hiddenness be holy. Somewhere above him, the sky was changing. But in the hollow there was only breathing, his and the earth's, and something vaster still, silent in its watchfulness. Jacob rested there in the belly of the land as the first real darkness of night settled its weight over everything. Nothing troubled him. Cotton from last season's plant clung to his thumb. He smiled, because nothing needed to happen now. He was kept, he was known. He was small and God was quietly near. Let this stillness do its work. Night listens with you, even here. The sky had dimmed to the color of cool slate. Jacob sat cross-legged on the woven mat, his knees tucked under the edge. In one hand he held a piece of parchment, smooth and blank. No words pressed into it, just empty space, soft against his thumb. He unfolded it quietly, no hurry. There was a kind of peace in seeing nothing there. No lists, no names to remember, no verses to recite, only the hum of evening insects and a slow wind moving through the brush. Jacob let that emptiness sit beside him. Sometimes nothing is easier to carry than something. He ran his finger down the crease, not tracing a line but honoring the quiet curve of the parchment. It didn't matter what might one day fill it. Tonight it was only for resting. Long shadows stretched across the ground. He didn't need to read or write. He just watched the blank, knowing it shared the night with him. Sometimes, the unsaid things live nearer to the heart than all those crowded words. His breath went slow and even. The fire popped, gentle as an old friend's laugh. Not much to do as the sky deepened. He didn't plan out his days in ink. He waited, letting boredom stretch out beside him as if holiness itself could be found in the empty places. The others in camp talked softly. They didn't glance his way. He liked it that way, nothing remarkable. Just small sounds of people settling, someone wrapping bread in cloth, another shaking dust from their sandals. The world didn't need him to write tonight. He lifted the parchment and held it in front of the firelight, watching the glow shine through. No words blocked the light, nothing to get in the way. He found comfort there, just a clean sheet, never tested, never stained. It let him be exactly as he was. Some nights he pictured words running wild across the surface, stories, prayers, maybe a promise. But not tonight. Tonight, the silence did the talking. The blank scroll was a blessing, like how a deep breath is enough before sleep. Jacob folded the parchment in half and then again, carefully so the creases stayed sharp, tucked it back in his pouch. He liked to know it was there, not to use, just to have. Let this moment stretch, nothing to prove, nothing owed. He asked for nothing, and that felt full enough. Just ahead, a sheep coughed quietly. Somewhere someone coughed too. Life passed by softly, without needing to show itself. Jacob leaned back against his pack. The ground beneath him felt like it belonged to everyone who ever paused here. Even this silence is holy. He listened to his own pulse, softer than the distant crickets. No one noticed his prayer. He didn't pray with words, but with the way he breathed. The night listened with him. No story written down. Yet the quiet went deeper than the parchment could hold. He closed his eyes. The world went even quieter, as if God's promise was spoken right there in the hush, without letters, without sound. Empty things can carry the heaviest peace. The scroll stayed unwritten, but Jacob slept as if it sang. He found a hill that wasn't too steep, the kind you walk just to see a little further, not to conquer. The ground was dry, and each step sank a little, dust rising, slow and tired with him. Jacob walked without hurry. Breath in, breath out. He tried to make his footsteps quiet. If each one was a prayer, maybe it would sound like a whisper in the dark. He watched the way his shoes pressed into the earth, how the heel made its mark, then faded when he moved on. The air cooled as he went higher. Nothing much to see, just old furrows from where someone else had worked the land long ago. He thought of what it was to be alone. No light in any window, no animal sounds tonight. Only the small crunch of his own journey. Sometimes he paused to breathe. He let it be slow. He wondered if anyone could see him from the sky. Maybe not. Maybe that was fine. He was just a figure climbing with the day's last bit of warmth. The sun bowing its head behind him. Sky turning gentle. At the top, he didn't shout or stretch his arms wide. He just set his bundle down and stood for a minute quiet. He could hear his heart. It felt like enough to just be. He unfolded a cloth and made a small place for rest. The stone pillow felt cool at first, but not harsh. Jacob lay his head down, folded his hands, and listened to his own slow breathing. The world felt far away, but not frightening. He shaped a prayer out of little words, just a whisper. "Stay with me, Lord." Clouds floated in front of the moon. Jacob tucked his feet under the cloth. He watched the shadows on the ground, shapes not asking to be known. He closed his eyes. No big promises, just enough hope for one night. He felt the stillness settle. Stillness holds me. The Lord knows my breath. I am not forgotten. God walks slowly too. Grace is here. This bed is enough. Tonight I am kept. Amen, amen, amen. There's a place just past the line where scrub grass gives up to the rocks. That's where Jacob goes. It isn't a destination, just a spot at the top of a gentle rise where the world feels farther away than usual and the sky presses closer in the emptiness. He climbs slow, hands on knees, boots answering loose stones. Then nothing. He sits. From here each hill is folded on another, a soft room made only of open air. Jacob's breath comes easy for once. Overhead the blue is so wide it feels like it might tip and spill, so clear you can almost hear it settle. Wind tugs quietly at the edge of his shirt. No animals nearby. No one calling from below. He speaks a sentence aloud, simple words mostly for himself. No one is meant to listen. The voice just lifts and drifts up, like a bird tired from flying, landing wherever it finds room. Far below, someone's dog barks. But up here the sound is gentle like everything else. His eyes land on a pebble, just a small crooked thing, left in dirt by yesterday's rain. He picks it up, turns it slow in his hand, feeling every rough line and smooth patch. The pebble is cool, it seems patient. Jacob holds it for a long time, rolling its weight from finger to finger as if it could answer the quiet between his thoughts. It is a day without story. No visitors pass. No message arrives. The sun moves across the sky, a careful watchman shifting his lantern. Hours drift, light changing on the slope, silver, then gold, then a blue that brushes close at night. Even the birds are gone. Only the hush remains like a soft blanket tucking the land in for rest. Jacob doesn't pray, not really. There are plenty of times for prayers, but some moments fill up with just being. He sits, hands folded around the stone, shoes untied, letting the world pass by underneath. He wonders where the ladder went, the one that stretched in that dream between everything up there and down here. It's easy to think some things only exist when you're too tired to care. Another breath. The wind slows almost to nothing. If there's an answer anywhere, it's so quiet Jacob can't hear it. He doesn't mind. He lets himself lie back, spine pressed to the warm earth, watching one lazy wisp of cloud. He feels less like someone who traveled far, more like a stone himself, solid, plain, waiting for nothing. His silence is as steady as the hills around him. Let this moment stretch as if every heartbeat is a page in some unfinished journal. The view is the same for hours. The pebble stays in his palm. He doesn't let it go. A hawk turns high, never coming close. Somewhere a fig leaf rattles in a breeze too faint to feel. In time he forgets he's holding anything at all. In the lowering light, shadows gather. Jacob sits up for a while. He picks at a thread on his sleeve. He asks for nothing and still feels full. The line between the sky and land blurs, and for a breath or two, it seems like the edge of something very gentle, where all you need is less than you thought. No one notices the quiet. No one keeps record. The day slips from one kind of empty to another, but the emptiness is kind. Let the night listen with you. The hush above stays soft, unbroken. Sometimes it's enough just to be small and to be heard and to rest. The afternoon stretches further than anyone asked it to. Jacob sits in the dust, elbows on knees, watching the world decide not to move. The shadows of tamarisk trees slip slowly across the tan ground, thinner and longer by the hour. It feels like time itself has chosen to lie down and close its eyes, not in sleep yet, but simply to rest. He listens. Not with hope, not in waiting for a sign, just to hear how the silence grows when you give it room. There are no voices now, only the whisper of wind, smooth and gentle, breathing across the rocks and dry grass. He leans back and lets his own breath fall into step with it. In, out, again. A lizard leaves tiny tracks, drawing a line between small stones. Jacob studies the creature's path, how purposeful each movement, yet how unhurried. The lizard is not searching for better. It rests in the sun, then shifts its belly to cooler ground. There is nothing to win here, nothing to prove. The world is wide and there is enough room to simply be. Somewhere behind him, a goat takes one long, patient yawn. The sound rolls through the still air, old, familiar, nothing special. The goat lowers itself, folds its legs under, and before long its eyes blink slow and heavy. Jacob notices his own jaw ache, his eyelids sliding, almost without consent, as if they too followed the rhythm of animal tiredness, folding toward the slow safety that lives in afternoon shade. Everything yawns. The earth, the trees, the heat itself. Even a beetle clicks to a halt, legs tucked close as if resting inside the hush. Shade moves an inch, sand cools by a breath. Someone might call this a pause, but here it's the whole story. There are days for walking, miles to count, troubles to remind you why you cannot linger. But not this day. Today is about staying. Jacob has nothing to build, no urgency. He is allowed to remain fully, deeply, just where he is. Close by, the sheep do not complain. Their eyes are half shut, ears flickering at flies, floating on their own secret tide of rest. He wonders if they see the same world when they drift into that warm, glowing place between waking and dreaming. Maybe every living thing shares the same promise. You belong in this stillness too. Jacob feels the weight of hours slide over him. They don't threaten, they comfort. They are as constant as the land that holds him up. A cricket starts its thin song, wavering and dull in the heat, then gives up halfway, the silence swallowing it whole. He smiles. No one hurries here, not even a cricket. He draws lines in the dust with a dry twig, not pictures, not plans, just lines. Here art is quiet. Ideas don't need to grow, they only need to exist while the world is slow. He thinks how the wilderness holds rest like a secret, repeating it in the muscles of animals, in the cool shadows, in the breathing hush of stone and lizard and sheep. Endurance does not feel like work now. It feels like worship. Jacob knew faith as striving, prayers shouted, promises chased, destinies on the run. But on an afternoon this long, faith is simply to stay and let the sameness be enough. He thinks of the keeper of sleep, the one who made time wide and gentle, whose hand slowed the world so every creature could sigh and close its eyes and trust to be safe. Jacob does not call out. He does not need to. Presence sits beside him, unintroduced, perfectly content. He asks for nothing and still feels full. Let this moment stretch. The night listens with you. Even this silence is holy. No one notices the prayer Jacob offers in his stillness. No one remarks on the way his shoulders settle, the deep, slow breath he does not remember taking. But it is all known. It is all kept. The light fades a little more. The land does not hurry it along. One more day held. Endurance again, revealed as the quietest gift, the gift of not leaving. of seeing the world just as it is, unchanged, yet never empty. And Jacob, with the animals and the stone and the drifting sun, remains, watched over by the keeper of sleep, in the unremarkable holiness of the yawn of creation. It was the kind of morning you notice by accident, a breath before the day gets up. Jacob's sandals left simple tracks through wild grass, dew marking the curves of his toes. He moved quietly, knowing only the birds could see him now. He stopped when the light changed, soft gold on the side of a low hill. There was a hush as if the earth was holding still. Jacob knelt, and in the fold of stone and dry roots he found a spring. It wasn't grand, just thin water pooling above the dirt, threading itself around stubborn weeds. He had carried his flask empty for hours, miles turning beneath his feet, with nothing to show for it, until now. Jacob waited as the settling dust around the spring stilled, no longer running from his arrival. He cupped both hands, palms open, letting his knuckles rest against the cold ground. The surface barely trembled except for a circle widening where he touched it. It looked wider than a bowl, small enough for solitude. He dipped the flask, moving slow, careful not to cloud the water. The stream inside made no sound but for a hush. Water never hurries, not in a place like this. Usually, Jacob might have glanced away, but this morning he watched. His eyes traveled across the shallow ripples, following the way the water kept changing, even when nothing seemed to move. In the reflection, his face wavered, a little older, a little lost, sometimes belonging, sometimes not. The lines near his mouth softened. His eyes blinked, unsure. Still, in that quiet pool, he saw everything the journey had done to him, and none of it was hidden. For every moment he looked, the water seemed to understand, a mirror with no memory, letting go of yesterday's dust. Even as pebbles shifted beneath the surface, the image righted itself, slow and patient. He noticed how every movement became part of the next one, how disturbance faded, how forgiveness, if it was coming, looked like this, gentle, always returning. Jacob's knees pressed into the cool dirt. He kept filling, tipping the narrow-mouthed jug until it was heavy, not rushing, letting the water find its own way inside. Each time he filled, new rings spread outward, wide and soft, never quite the same. Sometimes he saw a piece of himself sharper than before. Sometimes it blurred the longer he knelt, the more the world quieted, until even the wind climbed up the hillside silently, a spectator just like him. No words came. There wasn't any need. He carried enough questions inside him already. But as the sun reached higher, a small comfort grew with the shifting light, the kind that asks nothing, yet waits to be noticed. When the flask was full, he let it rest against his leg and just sat, listened to a beetle scratching through pebbles, felt the breeze flatten his hair, noticed a single feather caught in the weeds, barely moving. All of it there, no permission asked. He didn't name what he felt. No one would have understood waiting on the road behind him. But the watcher remained, holding his image without keeping it. Jacob tied the flask shut and stood. The hilltop watched him leave, without ceremony, without a story to tell others around their fires. Later, someone might drink from this well. Someone might see themselves, too. Even so, he walked on, not finished, not lost, still traveling but carrying something quieter this time. Behind, the water kept moving, folding light into itself, and letting go over and over with every step he took away. The afternoon feels heavier. It always does this late. The angle of the sun changes and the color of the ground thickens. A little darker, a little more gold, maybe a little more blue around the edges. Jacob keeps walking. His feet don't hurry. The day, too, walks at its own slow pace. The wind settles low and brushes his ankles. Every now and then he steps past a stone, or there's a small patch of weeds, gray-green, tired by the sun. Behind him, the place he left is softer now. In front of him, the way is just distance. There's no need to know how far, only to go as far as it lets him tonight. When the sun gets low like this, it pulls his shadow long and thin. Sometimes it makes two shadows depending on where he stands. They stretch across sand and stone, quiet banners, gentle, moving banners. They don't hurry him on. They just keep him company. There are no voices. Nothing to distract him except for the sound of his own steps and something else. For a while there is a little insect, some kind of beetle, he thinks, though he doesn't turn to look. It buzzes to the left of his ear, moving slow, making a soft circle in the air. It stays with him. It pauses when he pauses, landing now and then by his ankle. It isn't a bother. It's just part of the hour. For nearly half a mile, Jacob and the insect share the air. It's funny how, at this hour, everything seems to lengthen. Even the silence stays a little longer. It rests in the pockets between his footsteps. He's learned not to fill the silence, not with words, not with worry. Let it be quiet a moment more. The wilderness is familiar now. Even when it changes slow, an old friend rearranging its jacket in the dusk. Jacob lets his thoughts drop back, lighter at each step. They go nowhere in particular. He doesn't miss where he came from as much, not now. The longing for home fades to the edges of his heart like a memory growing faint in the settling air. Even worries seem gentle at this hour. The late sun has a way of softening sharp things. Every so often there's the sound of a bird, maybe doves or something smaller. Jacob doesn't look. All the birds sound gentle in the afternoons, as if their songs were meant to keep the day company. You can feel the change, the way light nudges you instead of pushing. There's no warning in it. No need to quicken your pace. Night is not an enemy here. It's just what follows, what always comes, what always keeps. Jacob trusts that. Night will wait for him. He can go slow. He takes a few deep breaths. The warmth in his throat is the kind you notice at day's end. A fullness from the sun, from walking, from being alive long enough to notice the difference between noon and now. There was no miracle in the afternoon, and still his heart feels a little more at rest. He glances at his hands, dust on the knuckles, a line of sweat inside the wrist. He wipes his palms on his robe, soft dust on soft cloth. He feels the weight of his satchel. It's lighter than before, he thinks, not because he's eaten or lost anything, but because the day does that. It sets things down, bit by bit, as if time makes everything easier to hold by letting some pieces fall away. Another patch of sand, slightly pink in this hour's light, let it stretch out. No hurry. Jacob's shoes are nothing special, leather darkened by travel, dusted by seasons. Each step is a breath. He doesn't count them. He doesn't think about arriving. This is the time of day when nobody asks anything of him. Not family, not the future. Even God, he thinks. At this hour, God feels close but quiet, not talking, just being nearby. Like the shade of a fig tree in a hot field. He remembers carrying water as a boy, how the water skin sloshed gently against his knee, never rushing, always steady, even on the hottest days. He lets that memory fill his mind now. Cool water, cool hands, a slow walk home. There's still plenty of light. The sky does not hurry. Shadows only mean there is something to see between where you stand and where the sun falls. The ground is never empty. For a while the insect is gone. Jacob almost misses it. Then he hears the little buzz again, this time a little lower. It's picking at a dry blade of grass. He can feel his own voice in his chest, but he doesn't speak. Sometimes quiet can be a prayer. Sometimes a walk is enough. He's tired, but not in a way that aches. He's the kind of tired that feels right, like the earth is holding him carefully up from below. His steps don't drag because he's not fighting anything, not the dark, not the distance, not himself. Let your breathing slow now. Let the quiet widen. A small pebble finds its way under his heel. He shifts his weight, keeps walking. The little discomfort fades, as all things do if you give them room. He keeps moving, letting the day close as gently as it wants. The sun slides lower, sitting just above the horizon. The last light doesn't glare, it glows. It makes everything seem both closer and farther. Jacob knows he should look for a place to stop for the night, but there's no urgency. He trusts he'll know when he finds it. He trusts the light will last long enough. It's easy to worry you'll go too far, miss your place to rest. But Jacob has learned. If you trust the hours, if you let the shadows grow long, you always find what you need. Even if tonight it's only a flat stone and some space to breathe. The world feels thinner at this hour. Not empty, only more open. The sky above him turns deep, wide blue with a stripe of gold trailing low. Every day ends the same, but every ending feels new. Even the silence is sacred now. Even the slow, steady beat of his own walk, it's enough. He asked for nothing and still felt full. No one notices this prayer, but it is heard for now. He keeps walking at the edge of the golden hour, trusting that dusk is friendly and the night will welcome him like an old friend with a waiting place. Your breath can settle here. The shadows may grow, but they never hurry you. This is enough for tonight. Let the stillness do the work. Let every line feel like silence made holy. The path beneath Jacob was nothing special, just loose dust, pressed smooth where travelers walked before him. Ancient stones baked quiet in the sun. The world was gentle today, drowsy with heat. Somewhere close, goat bells rang, soft and distant enough to be a memory. Every breath tasted of ripening things, soil turning sweet, green leaves sighing slow. The branches overhead offered nothing but shade, deep and cool. Jacob did not hurry. Sunlight on his shoulders made the world soft, and the hush around him was thicker than sleep. It was the hour when everything slowed for no reason. He saw the fig tree before he was beneath it. They grew everywhere, the figs. They lined roads, steady as old friends watching from the edges. This one stretched one crooked arm across the path. Figs, Jacob remembered picking them as a boy, reaching for the ripest ones, warm from the sun, sticky sweetness clinging to his hands. But time had passed. Some of the fruit fell now, softer each day. The world did not bother to mourn them. He squatted and found a fig that had settled into a nest of dust and leaves. Its skin was deep purple, wrinkled and tender, no longer firm, but richer for the days spent on the ground. He didn't eat, just turned it over in his palm. There's a grace in waiting. The world tells you fruit is best when it's perfect, picked at the right moment, gleaming and whole. But age brings something else, a surrender, a giving in, a letting go. The fig, heavy with the memory of sweetness, was softer now, more willing. He traced its shape with his thumb, not rushed, just there with it. The fruit did not struggle. The softness was honest. He realized he was holding a story, not of missing the moment, but of ripening past it and being beautiful anyway. A breeze nudged the branches. Jacob listened to the hush, the way the leaves trembled, the drift of dust. No one would notice this fig. No one waited for it. Still, it had grown, ripened, yielded. Even the things left behind were gathered by God. He set the fig gently in the shade again. Older fruit is not lost. Sometimes the sweetest things are those that have let go, hands open, softness blooming where firmness used to be. Sometimes being held is enough. Even in small endings, there's kindness. The warmth of the sun in cooling air, the comfort of softening, letting yourself be still. Grace lives here too. Jacob leaned back against the tree, eyes half closed. He felt the world breathing slowly with him, felt the nearness of God in the simple quiet, a presence as gentle as fallen fruit, ripening past its prime, resting in the dust. Let this moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. If fruit can surrender, maybe you can too. Not everything must be gathered up. Some things are just meant to be held a little longer, to soften until the sweetness seeps out. Jacob stayed, not thinking, not asking, just breathing, tracing the story of grace with sleepy hands. The day moved on, unhurried as ever. Nothing remarkable, and yet a fig had fallen, and being seen was enough. He moved through the hills, stepping over loose roots and cracked stones. There was no plan tonight. He just walked slow, quiet around the edges of dry grass. The air was chilly but not sharp. His calves ached from the climb that never truly ended. Sunset eased across the ground. Some clouds disappeared. Others hung on like passengers waiting for the dark. He didn't choose a camp tonight. It seemed the earth made up its mind before he could. There, a gentle dip, half hidden behind a fallen olive branch. Not much to look at, but it felt right somehow, like the ground remembered him or was waiting for someone to rest there. He let his pack slide from his shoulder. The dust puffed up and then settled down all by itself. In this hollow, things were softer. A patch of weeds, flat from animals that came and went, pine needles in the dirt, bits of old seed hulls broken and scattered. It smelled faintly like rain, though there wasn't any. The world just felt washed and ready. There was nothing to guard, nothing to chase away. The only sound was the low wing beat of a bird far off, and the wind turning leaves over in their sleep. He squatted to check the pebbles, pushing aside the sharpest ones. His knees cracked but made no complaint. The work was easy. Hands remembered their practice. He laid down his pack, then his small leather pouch, a threadbare cloth, and the crust of last night's barley bread. Each item weighted, patient and common against the earth. You would not have seen anything holy there, unless you were looking for it. He sat at the edge of the little hollow and let his feet breathe in the cool air. The sun slid away, and so did the noise inside his chest. He asked for nothing and still felt full. One pebble shaped like an eye, one leaf curled around itself, pale and hidden. The place was plain but somehow touched with care, as if someone long before had prepared it for him. He couldn't have said why this spot felt chosen. It just did. He chewed his bread slow, each bite simple but enough. The taste of wild herbs lingered on his tongue. He watched a beetle crawling towards its own tunnel, patient and single-minded. He lay back, feet crossed, one hand behind his head. The stars came early, clustered low over the ridge. He didn't bother counting them. Just let them be. The night felt close, not heavy, but thick with quiet purpose. Some people might have wandered further, wanting something more. But he was content to let himself be kept by this soft dent in the ground, by the way the soil matched the shape of his resting bones. A faint breeze wandered in and stayed a while. The grass leaned not away but toward him. Not one thing out here called his name, but nothing turned him away either. He could have kept walking, could have grumbled about the dust or the weariness in his feet. He didn't. The hollow was here, ready without asking. It offered sleep and the hush that comes before dreams. He looked up at the nearby ridge. Not a single lamp, not a neighbor's laughter, just him, the gentle place, and whatever watched from beyond the edges. There was no promise spoken aloud tonight, and yet with every breath he felt less lost. Let this moment stretch. Even the silence is holy. The night listens with you, even the rocks cool now. They held the sun all afternoon, sweating heat through Jacob's linen pack. Now it leaches slow, fading out of the crevices, making the ground soft with evening's promise. He presses his palm into the stone. The edge is warm, yes, but only just. It's the same kind of ache that lingers after a long day, the kind that lets go by degrees. Everything is letting go now. Dust sticks to the back of his hand. It cracks on his knuckles. There's grit still in the crooks of his fingers, stinging where the skin's rubbed raw. He brushes it off absently, watching the powder float and settle. The quiet is patient. Jacob strips down to his linen tunic. There's a line of salt on his arm, left by sweat that's dried in the open air. He runs a finger down it, tracing the journey. From shoulder, past elbow, down toward the wrist. Little grains wedge under his nail. In the stillness he almost smiles. No one is watching, but it feels like a relief. The day is giving itself up. This is a lover's welcome. The way evening takes the heat out of stones, out of bones, out of breath. Even the goats grow gentle, bedding down with their sides to the last light, noses twitching through the cooler dark. The world is unwinding. Jacob leans into the hush, knees drawn up to his chest, feeling the wind pass over fields he cannot see. Not every journey is marked by distance. Some stretches are measured in quiet. Above, the first cool stars blink out, scattered like grain across an empty table. Jacob counts one, then a second. He loses track by the third. Each breath is slower. Not thinking, just tracing circles around sore ankles, he thanks nothing out loud, though gratitude is present. It lies heavy in the chest, not needing words. The night doesn't require anything precise, just softness. There's a kind of magic in how the ground releases its heat. He remembers his mother cooling bread on the stone threshold, warm middle turning tender as dusk. Not everything is lost if it fades slowly. Not every kindness needs to declare its arrival. Some just settle in, the way the cool settles around him, limb by limb. He watches his breath fog for a moment, then disappear. He doesn't ask why, enough to just notice. He lays a hand flat against the stone pillow, feeling the last patch of warmth deep inside, shrinking even as he rests. The day's struggle quiets with it. It's not surrender loud like a drum, but quiet like a blanket dropped over shoulders. The stone and the man are emptying at the same pace now. The cooling world makes a nest for sleep. He stares up, bracing his tired elbows against the dirt. There's nothing to see but sky and the first threads of dark. But the coolness is a small assurance, a promise that tomorrow the sun will warm the rocks again, and that tonight he will not need to carry any heat alone. Jacob hums under his breath, just a scrap of a tune half forgotten. It keeps him company as the space between thoughts widens. A fox pads through the brush. The wind shuffles the branches. And still that gentle cooling goes on, outside and somewhere inside too. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Even this silence is holy. The night listens with him. The night is here and Jacob is alone, the sky deep and empty, the ground honest beneath him. His hands move across stones, cool and silent, picking one that isn't too smooth and isn't too cruel. Just something real. He folds his cloak the way his mother showed him, one corner then another, laying it soft beneath the chosen stone. There is nothing special about the place. The earth is plain, unremarkable. His knees press into scattered dust and he sinks lower, the world pressing back in a slow, quiet way. The darkness does not trouble him. He listens to the small sounds, the wind sliding over the hills, the song of a cricket, a branch settling under the weight of rest. Every sound is ordinary, every breath is enough. He places his head gently on the stone. It doesn't give, but it doesn't hurt. He lets out a slow breath, the kind you let go of only when you're alone. The air is a little colder around his ears, and his body curls around itself for warmth, finding shapes he's learned over many nights away. Jacob doesn't bother searching the sky for answers. There are stars, but his eyes are tired. They close and open, slower each time, like he's listening for a gentle story from inside the dark. There is no hurry and no fear. His mind lets go of counting the days, lets the worries spill onto the dirt, not holding them close for tonight. He can feel his own heart waiting, then slowing. The stone is steady. His body remembers how to relax piece by piece. Shoulders drop, hands grow quiet, breath deepens, lost in a long sacred pause. There's comfort here, a strange sort born from being small and seen, alone but not invisible. Sometimes when Jacob shifts, the stone presses back. It keeps him honest, keeps him close to the ground. He is not asking for anything tonight. There is nowhere else to go and nothing more he needs. His eyelids drift again. The weight of fatigue is old and kind, and he welcomes it. He lets the wilderness wrap around him, not as a threat but as a blanket. He feels how close God is, not loud, not sudden, just there, like mist, like the hush that follows a finished song. No one notices this prayer. No one but God hears the quiet way Jacob surrenders, body unwinding, worry dissolving, the world becoming smaller with every breath. Let this moment stretch. Let the silence settle, slow and deep. Even here, laying down on stone, there is a holy kind of boredom, a rest that holds sacred the simple act of growing still. The night listens with you, and even this quiet is loved. It was quiet in the night. Not the kind of quiet you notice, just the quiet that's always there at the edge of things. Jacob lay where the brush and stones met, almost an afterthought in the wide, empty land. He was not searching for miracles. He was only tired with tomorrow still undone. The stone beneath his head was cold. He did not curse it, he did not bless it. He put his weight down and let his body settle. The grass held him as gently as it held every drifter passing through. There was nothing in the air but the soft shuffle of small animals moving out of sight. A breeze traced the hem of Jacob's robe. Overhead, a few stars hid behind thin clouds, blurred and forgettable. The night did not promise anything special. It simply continued. As always, Jacob's eyes fluttered closed. He listened to his own breathing, deeper as he folded into sleep. The earth beneath him did not move. The stone did not grow warm. All was as it had been for as long as anyone in his family could remember. There were nights like this on the road, always somewhere that was not the end. He did not feel chosen. He felt small, and that was enough for now. Somewhere, the sky seemed to grow heavy. There was no thunder, only a stillness that pressed in, the kind that comes before rain. Jacob did not stir. The world remained plain until it became quietly strange. Without warning, there was a ladder. It rested where no builder's hands had touched. It seemed to reach, but not so high as to be lost. It was just there, sitting in the space between leaving and arriving. Jacob did not climb it. He did not even wish to. He simply saw angels moved on it, not in flight but walking. Their feet touched the rungs, simple, deliberate. Up and down, up and down. They did not hurry or pause for effect. The ladder did not belong to Jacob. The angels did not greet him. They passed by as if they'd always been moving, busy with errands Jacob did not need to know. Holiness did not gather there. It was simply passing through. Each angel shimmered with light, but not of the showy kind you read about. It was something easy on the eyes, like dawn behind a shut window. They carried nothing, said nothing, but their steps left the air thinner, like breath fogging a glass and then clearing. They were at home, these travelers. The ladder creaked once, then not again. Jacob did not think about the meaning of it. He did not pray for the vision to last, nor ask for it to end. He lay quiet, with the stone under his head. He let the wonder pass around him as calmly as the silence before sleep. Even in a vision, Jacob did not demand center stage. He stayed a guest in the moment, seen, but not the reason. There were words, or almost words. Not many. Only a promise, soft enough that even the sheep might miss it. A reminder, gentle as a hand on the shoulder. You are not alone. In the wilderness, even when everyone is somewhere else, someone is near. The wind shifted and might have carried something holy into Jacob's breath, or maybe it was just the earth spinning on. The latter remained for a while. Jacob was awake and asleep at the same time, aware but not watching. The movement above him did not disturb the night. It was part of the quiet. The angels did not explain their purpose. They came and they went, always in pairs, always in rhythm, like a long line for bread at dawn, gentle and endless. The world was not changed by their going, or maybe it was, but not in any way Jacob could name. He did not record it in his mind as a miracle. It was just how the world kept itself together, softly, invisibly. Jacob's heart did not race. He might have smiled, but only just. He felt something settle across his shoulders, the way a well-made blanket falls into place. He did not have to understand it. The presence above and beneath was enough. On the stone, in the weeds, in the smallness of being far from home, God's nearness did not shout. It whispered, and Jacob listened by doing nothing at all. In the slow hours until dawn, nothing more happened. The ladder stood quietly. The angels moved. Jacob rested. The ground cooled beneath him. At times he let himself drift even further, following no sound at all. The details blurred, grass, rock, night sounds, all returning to the hush at the story's edge, where holy things do not announce themselves. They just come and go with steady, unnoticed grace. Jacob slept. The world held him as it always had. Angels passed overhead, intent on things that did not need to be explained tonight. Jacob did not wake to follow them or cry out for meaning. He allowed the mystery to be larger than his dream. He asked for nothing and still felt full. You can rest here with him. The wind might pass you by. The ladder might just be a thought or a hope or a promise settling gently into your chest. God's nearness hums not loud, never sudden but always here, passing through, lifting and lowering, letting the stillness do its work. Tonight you don't need to move, just be where you are. Holy things are passing by. There are nights when even the rocks feel soft. Jacob let his pack slump beside him, shoulders aching from hours of emptiness that followed the setting sun. Dust settled around his ankles. He wasn't near any village, just more sand and wild scrub, quiet and dry as unspoken prayers. He set down a stone and pressed his head against it, shifting until the sharp edges faded. The world was quiet but never really silent. A breeze slipped through the grass, gentle and indecisive, moving without hurry. In the far-off dark, a cricket started singing, and then another, their rhythm slow and forgiving. Nothing extraordinary happened. Jacob wasn't expecting it. Tonight, without a lamp or laughter, he let his thoughts fall out in pieces. Faces he'd left behind, tomorrow's road, the taste of last night's bread. He watched a shadow crawl along his sleeve and settle on the ground. The sky didn't tremble. The wind didn't carry secrets. Even so, the air felt different, not heavy exactly, just full, like the world was humming beneath its own breath. This is what a promise feels like when it isn't spoken aloud. You don't have to name it. It moves closer than words, smaller than hope. Jacob didn't say God's name. He didn't have to. His heart slowed, rested. Something ancient and gentle saw him, saw the dust on his face, the set of his jaw, the tired way he lay alone but not lonely. If you walked past him that night, you wouldn't have stopped. Nothing special to see. Just a man drifting off, shoulder pressed to a cool stone, sandals beside him in the grass. But there's a silence older than sleep, and it gathered quietly around Jacob as the stars kept watch. He noticed almost. Sometimes a comfort is so close, it slips right between your thoughts. The miracle hid itself in plain things. Jacob's sandals, worn soft at the heel. The last sip of water warm in his throat. The looseness of his fingers as he folded his hands against his chest. Simple routines, nothing wholly on purpose, just letting the night wrap around him. The sky above carried its own hush, a pale smudge of stars, the moon rounded and slow behind a passing cloud. You can hear a promise even when nobody says anything. Some truths arrive softly, like dew or cool air on a fevered day. Not command, not law, just presence. Jacob breathed it in, heavy lids sinking, back rising and falling with each easy breath. Even the most tired traveler can feel known, even out in the empty places. There is a warmth in being noticed when you are not looking for it. A soft wind nudged the grass. Jacob scratched his cheek, then stilled again. Above, the heavens stretched on, patient as ever. He didn't ask for a vision. He didn't call out. Yet the space around him seemed to fold a little closer, as if making room for mercy. The angels that came and went did so quietly. No trumpets, no shouts, just movement at the edge of sight, furtive, unhurried, sure as breathing. Up and down the ladder, unseen but close enough for comfort. Let this moment stretch. Jacob carried the memory of a mother's bread, the rough spun cloth of his shirt. The world tried to keep going even when he did not. A jackal howled far away, its voice thin and lonely. He listened to the dark, half drowsing, not afraid. There was no rule about feeling safe. It was a gift, arriving in silence. He turned once, pulling his knees up. The dew was coming, but the chill didn't trouble him. The earth pressed against his shoulder, real and steady. He remembered the way his father's hand once smoothed creases in a blanket, so quietly it almost didn't matter. And yet he always slept better afterward. In the dark, small grace matters most. The world can feel almost gentle if you let it. The breath of God didn't thunder. It just lingered, soft as a sigh. The world went on, not missing him, not needing him, but holding him just the same. People always talk of miracles as if lightning cracks the sky. Sometimes the holy thing is that nothing breaks, the ordinary stretches and holds. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Sometimes Jacob wondered what tomorrow would ask of him. Not tonight. Tonight he let himself be a person, not a plan. Of all the names he carried, none mattered now. Even this silence is holy, a stone for a pillow, grass for a blanket, his own heartbeat sounding like a gentle drum. The darkness pressed near, familiar, undeserving of worry. Angels could have passed right by him. He wouldn't know their faces. But he trusted that they came because something ancient and kind let him rest without fear. The promise wasn't spoken. It didn't have to be. The hush itself was enough. You are seen, you are kept, you are not forgotten, even out here where nothing looks back at you. Being noticed by something older than time asks nothing in return. It is a kindness made quiet. Even among empty miles and cool stones, Jacob belonged to someone who never walked away. Tonight the sky stayed where it was, stars blinking without urgency. When Jacob closed his eyes, he did not dream of ladders or messengers, not in pictures. Just in warmth, just in bone-deep peace. In the morning he would rise and say nothing of it, except perhaps that he slept well. Nobody would think it mattered. And maybe that is the holiest part of all. The night listens with you. Let the promise be enough. There are nights when nothing stirs. Jacob does not rise. The weight of travel is folded under him, the aches, the lost places, the hopes he keeps quiet. He finds himself barely more than an outline on the earth. The stone is cool against his head, but after a time it just feels there, soft and hard at once. Dusk gathers quietly around his elbow. The folds of his tunic draw in the smell of crushed grass, the taste of evening in the air. There's a pulse in the ground, not loud, a gentle thrum answered by his slowing breath. Sound floats by in pieces, a small night insect far off, the hush of breeze threading itself through low scrub. Everything familiar, yet unfamiliar by moonlight. Nothing calls him to move. There is no task unfinished. There is no one searching for him in the dark. He shifts once, less a decision than a settling. The stone, the dust, the dark, They are all a part of something bigger, not separate. He lets his fingers press softly into the soil, slow, steady, not picking at anything, not building or gathering, just pressing, because the earth is here and so is he. Silence is layered in this place. It drapes over him like a wool blanket. Jacob listens to his own heartbeat, hears the whisper of God carried in the stillness, the kind that asks nothing, promises everything. It is not excitement. It is not even hope. It is something steadier, a certainty that by being here he is known. He could rise, but the idea seems far away. The ground is not a place to escape tonight. It is as safe as a childhood home. Everything slows. Even the angels seem to move as breath up and down, so softly they hardly trouble the air. A cricket rests on his sandal. For a moment they share the world's quiet. Pebbles press into Jacob's side. He does not mind them. They are not in the way. Even discomfort is gentle here. It asks nothing sharp, only patience. Jacob lets his jaw unclench. His brow smooths. He releases the day little by little. The slight tangle of memory, the need to be somewhere else. There is nothing to do and nowhere to go. Stillness is not a prison, but a promise. He lets his eyelids flutter. Instead of trying to sleep, he lets rest fold around him. If he listens, the silence is a song, one only heard when you do not move, when every answer can wait until morning. Dust drifts, breath slows. His hands stay open on the earth. The stone no longer feels separate from his head. The line between body and ground and night grows soft. In the deepness of stillness, God is easier to trust. The night will not hurry, neither will Jacob. Here, worship has no words and asks for nothing in return. This is the only miracle. To remain so long the world forgets to spin, to be kept safe inside a pause, to realize that peace has always been a kind of stillness, waiting to be noticed. Amen. The sky settled low. Jacob lay with his back to the earth, the stone beneath his head cool and steady like a promise. The wild around him slowed. Even the wind grew tired, only a hush of grass shifting, the faint brush of linen against his arm. Far off a sheep stirred and quieted again. No one else spoke. The day had used up every word. He watched the light leave, a little bit at a time. It never disappears all at once. The blue above him turned gray, then purple, and finally the black of a new moon night. Stars gathered quietly, first just one, hard to see, then another, closer to the horizon. He counted 3, then lost track, let them multiply. Jacob breathed. When he closed his eyes, it was as if the stars began inside his chest instead. In the wilderness there are no walls. The sky touches the ground. He noticed how every small thing kept moving. A moth fluttered at his ankle, somewhere a cricket tapped the dirt. Jacob felt himself join their quiet rhythm, letting his shoulders sink deep